these little pieces that were glued down well were really stuck down. So I think we can get a lot better glue job. Most of it wasn't even glued, and that's because the hide glue has to be hot when you use it. As soon as it gels, it won't stick anything to anything, which is why I have this plan to let the hide glue cool, get as much as I want on the surface, and then reheat it and reflow it. While we're here, I'm just gonna make sure all the glue, all dried glue is off of here. I can feel just like a really small amount of inconsistency, like there's a kind of a slight high point right here. Very, very subtle though. And of course, once the leather is on there, it's going to have an evening effect because the leather is soft and it's going to glue down to any inconsistencies here. And then if we want, I could actually flatten the surface of the leather even more. But it's pretty damn flat. Just a little bump right there. There's a dip right here. But, you know, I'm only willing to spend so much time sitting here removing minute quantities of wood, trying to get something perfect that will never be perfect. It's pretty common to put the flesh side up on strops because it's fuzzy and it holds polishing compound. I'm going to use the grain side, but I've removed the grain from the grain side, except for right here, which I'll just scrape that off. Like the fibers are finer and they're more densely packed, so it's going to be tougher, but it's still fuzzy, but it's less loose. Like, well, I'll talk about that more when I do the next video on in the Strop series. And don't worry, Cordwood Challenge people, I will get to that. This was just a side project related to these videos I'm working on about scraping wood with knives, which are going to be really cool. This grain is really dried up, so it comes off easy. It's vulnerable, weak, without any either water or oil in it. And there's no oil in it yet. We'll oil it once it's glued up. That looks good. Once again, this is our working surface. Very nice. Very, very nice. Okay, here's the plan. I'm going to put glue on here and allow it to cool and gel. And then I'm going to heat this in the meantime. And I think I'm going to go ahead and put it in the steamer I have going. I'm steaming some potatoes for breakfast. Now ideally I would just heat it in an oven or something like that, but I don't want to turn the oven on because it's going to be very hot today and I don't want to heat the house up. So that's the plan. Heat this up. It will transfer heat through the leather into the glue and the wood, melt everything in together with pressure, and then I'll just leave it till it's dry, clamped. Yeah, let's not talk too much, because I'm going to do all this over again when I do the strops for the Cordwood Challenge participants. Remember, my purpose here is actually to build up a layer of almost excessive amount of glue. I'm going to put on just a very thin layer, at least that's the idea here, just to prime it basically, although I'm not sure that's necessary at all, but I'm just going to do it anyway. It's bad enough gluing on porous woods, that's always a problem, but this leather is extremely porous. It's like the worst porous wood multiplied many times. It's a sponge. So when I put all this together and heat it up, this leather is going to soak up a lot of glue. That's why I want a lot of glue in here. Now that sticks down there pretty good, but that's an illusion. It's not going to make a strong joint until it's clamped hot. You know, I don't think this piece of wood is dense enough. It's very, very light. It's like cedar or something, so it has a lot of airspace. Maybe like a piece of oak or stone or metal would be a lot better. Okay, so I gotta find something else to heat up. New plan. I heated up this little frying pan. It has a flat bottom, and I'm gonna use that as an iron. And the board is still heating. This pan's pretty hot. Now, dry leather is dry bark tanned leather, or vegetable tanned leather, is very resistant to heat. Wet vegetable tanned leather will shrink, and that's how I made this mug, which is another video, and worth watching if you haven't seen it. I call that good. One of the drawbacks to hide glue, short working time. This board is definitely warm, but I wouldn't call it hot. But the glue doesn't have to be very warm to be liquid, it just has to be a little bit warm. And the frying pan heat definitely penetrated down through here. Okay, well, I think we got a good glue job here. I don't want to over test it. It feels pretty good. I think it's good. So first things first, is I want to trim this leather flush. That's a pileated woodpecker, the big giant ones. This knife is only kind of pretty sharp. I may stop and go sharpen it, but I really don't feel like it. I did a quick strop on it to touch it up, but really for trimming leather it's pretty hard to trim with a knife that's not ultra sharp. And get, you know, really clean lines. Like this just isn't. It's just not giving me really ultra clean cuts. Yeah, there's no way. Okay, I just re-stropped it, but I'm not sure it'll be enough. The problem with leather is that it's flexible, so it moves out of the way. So if the tool isn't just super, super sharp, it's hard to get a clean cut. And this knife has been through a lot since I sharpened it last. Lots of scraping. I even used it as a test example of what scraping will do to the edge of a Scandi grind knife. That's going a little better now. A little easier on the end here. Now I'm just trying to bevel this leather, and I'm trying to dress this up and make it look good and not have like a bunch of loose tag ends. Now this is nice and sharp. Of course, I'm using it carefully too by I'm sliding the knife forward this way as I push it, which creates more of a slicing action. You can tell, like, holding my breath while I do this. It's delicate work. You can take it off, but you can't put it back. So the reason I'm putting this on eBay is it's kind of an experiment, because I had this idea of, I thought it might be really cool to do maker videos and then auction the item off. I think that's a really cool idea, and this is just like, I was like, made this to make a point in another video. It was just kind of a spur of the moment project. I need to talk about this in this video, and this is the perfect little project to make a flat surface without using a plane or having any like other flat surfaces or sandpaper or anything to make that happen. Okay, I'm just gonna put a bevel on this leather because I feel like it. And then I thought, you know, I don't need this. I've got a bunch of these already. So perfect. Why not just throw it on auction and see what happens? I'm not expecting it to sell for a lot, but I'm just going to start it really low. The other projects I have in mind would be quite a bit more involved and, to me, more exciting. Although this is a pretty neat project. I'm pretty into these little strops. I think they're really cool. I use mine all the time. There's some little bumps here where the piece I clamped, the piece of wood I used to clamp had two little divots in it, and so they left raised areas here, almost like a little blister. I'm going to put 1 drop of water on that and then clamp it flat and just compress it, because the rest of this is really highly compressed. And then I'm going to put a light coating of oil on the leather, because this leather was not oiled at all. I wanted to leave it unoiled so that it would glue down really well. It's a great little strop. This is so nice. I think it's really cool. I love this surface. I think it's perfect. It's got tooth and fiberness, like porousness to it to hold compound, but it's not like loose and floppy at all. It's very, very firm. If you use the flesh side on a really loose skin, like a deer skin, sometimes the leather itself will like roll and like pleat and almost like washboard. I don't know how to describe it, but this isn't going to do anything like that. It's very, very firm. So I think my suspicion that that would make a really good strop surface was probably correct. Okay, so that's it. Let's go oil this. I'm going to take some pictures, drop it on eBay, and we'll see what happens. Right on that spot. Nice and hard. Okay. Okay, now that sucker's dead flat. Just scraping out the little water spots and some texture left by the wood and the cloth. Just because I want it to look good, that's all. How would I clamp this in a primitive situation? Like, let's say I did only have a knife and a hatchet to make this, and I wanted to glue the leather on. I would make probably make another flat board glue it up hot, put the other board on top, and then lash it really tight with a piece of cordage. Hide glue doesn't require a high clamping pressure, I don't think, in general. It needs to have enough pressure to make sure that all the surfaces are mated well. You know, obviously you need that much pressure anyway. So that's probably how I would do that. I have here something that's called dubbin. It's a mixture of a soft fat with a hard fat. In this case, I think it's goat fat or beef fat with olive oil, probably. Doesn't matter too much. I just want to get some oil into this leather because dry leather is weak leather, typically. In natural skin, you have water, and that water, it does something, you know, in the structure of the skin. It makes the skin pliable and strong. So when you remove that, you end up with something that's essentially brittle. It doesn't have the strength that comes with the ability to stretch. So that's one fact, can be a factor in something being strong, is if it can adapt to stress. So something that's very stiff and isn't at all flexible doesn't adapt to stress when stress is applied to it. In some cases that's okay. It's not going to mean necessarily that it's not strong. I mean, I think it's more complicated than that. But in the case of leather, it's easy to see how a piece of skin that's alive and full of water has part of its strength from adaptability. If I poke this knife at my skin, see what it does? It moves. What if that was dry and tight as a drum? It wouldn't have that property anymore.